Hi, Andy Surtees here from History Remastered. Welcome to my second channel. This is for stuff that isn't remastered history but is related. This one shows how I take an old, badly recorded sound file from its original state to what you hear on History Remastered. So I've imported the file into RX6 Advanced, so let's have a listen to some of the audio so we can see what the problems are.
Which, as I say, we anticipate that it will be getting more intense.
As I understand it,
So there's a general hiss and there's a series of ka-thunk sounds, and Eisenhower is way quieter than Kennedy is. So I'll go into declicker and I'll have a play with the settings till it gets better. So that's now processed and this is what it sounds like.
As I don't expect they're going to discontinue work on these things, I don't expect they're going to withdraw them.
So those ka-thunks pretty much gone. Now let's go into the spectrum view and deal with some of that hum. So these horizontal lines, they can only be hum. Nothing good looks like that. They're over quite a narrow frequency band, so I can just delete them without having any negative effect on the rest of the sound. There are also some bands of noise that move around though, and I can't just delete the whole area because it's too wide. So I'll noise reduce these bits using spectral denoise. I'll get in as close as possible to the frequency range, just so I'm not noise reducing anything I don't need to. That allows me to use fairly extreme settings without causing too many problems with the rest of the sound. I'll put spectral denoise in adaptive mode so it's listening to the noise as it happens and reacting to it. And I'll play around by ear to see what the best settings are, and then I'll process it. That process takes nearly 9 minutes because it's quite processor intensive. So let's have a listen.
some outcries from all around the world, probably including Latin America and so on and so on. There will be a lot of talk about the United Nations and so on.
Right.
The only thing that I said to John is that here's something that...
So that hum's mostly gone now. Next is the general background noise. The thing to do here is to find a bit of the track that's just the noise with no talking. So here it is. So if we assume that that noise is typical, we can tell spectral denoise to learn it and then remove it from the whole track. Again, it takes some playing around with the settings to get it so that it's taking away the maximum amount of noise and causing the minimum distortion. Once I'm happy with that, I'll process it. So now I've cleaned the whole thing up a bit, it's time to take the clean file into Pro Tools and do some editing. I'll listen through and identify which bits are Kennedy and which are Eisenhower so I can move them to separate tracks. That way I can equalize the levels and do any processing that's specific to one voice or another. Once I've separated those out, I'll consolidate the tracks so that each one is a single file, so I can move them back into RX for more processing. So let's have a listen to Eisenhower and get some EQ for his voice.
That probably will be, Mr. President, that probably will be bothering you the most.
Now I'm going to run dialogue isolate. It's processor intensive, so it's time consuming to get the settings right by listening. So I'm going to select a very minimal setting, but then run that setting over and over in a module chain. That way I can go away for half an hour, come back, and if it's overdone, I can undo a couple of iterations to get back to a less processed sound. Let's have a listen.
Here's something that even if you don't get...
So that's better, not over-processed, so I'll keep that. That's all the processing we need to do for Eisenhower for now, so let's EQ Kennedy.
We have to assume that they perhaps will shoot down one of these U-2s.
Just some mild EQ needed there, as his voice has more low and high frequency information that we want to keep. Now we can run all those dialogue isolates as we did for Eisenhower.
With an opposition will be the withdrawal of these up there to...
After that, I'll add a bit of DS to Kennedy, and then it's time to export the whole thing into Ozone to finish it off using Spectral Shaper to get rid of some of the harshness.
There will be a lot of talk about the United Nations and so on. The only thing that I said to John is that here's something that even if you don't get as many people in South America, many governments go along, that once you've taken the first step in force, then you will have to, if necessary, to...
That's better. So now I just need to sort the levels out, adding a bit of dynamic compression and a maximizer, and then we can export those 2 tracks back out to Pro Tools and mix them together. So I just adjust the levels so that the tracks match and sound natural, then I can bounce the file, and that's it. That's a History Remastered episode made. It took about 4 hours in total. So let's have a listen to the effect that actually had. Here's a clip of the original before any processing was done.
The one thing I didn't quite understand, that you'd suspect that the third program would require a number of increasingly serious steps.
Well, what we anticipate is first his statement of, the sort of usual one. But then, of course, the surveillance will continue. Now,
and here's that same bit after I've processed it.
The one thing I didn't quite understand, that you'd suspect that the third program would require a number of increasingly serious steps.
Well, what we anticipate is first his statement of, the sort of usual one. But then, of course, the surveillance will continue. Now,
so I hope you liked that. If so, like, subscribe, tell your friends, and maybe support me on Patreon. That'd really help me get more of these made. When I'm deciding what to remaster, I start off by looking at what seemed most interesting, and then I was going to narrow it down by excluding clips that had been restored before. But what I found was that almost none of them have. That seems pretty crazy to me. I'm going to start contacting archives and museums to see if they'd like me to do a load of the recordings in bulk. But until then, the best way to get more of these classic, famous and important clips restored is to throw me some pennies on Patreon via this link. Thanks, and I hope to see you again soon.